There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, your home for deer hunting news, stories, and strategies. And now, your host, Mark Kenyon.
Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kenyon. This is episode number 168, and today on the show, we're kicking off our 2017 Rut Radio mini-series, in which we're going to be getting real-time, from-the-field updates from across the country about how deer are behaving, current conditions affecting deer, and the tactics that are working right now. All right, guys, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, brought to you by Sitka Gear. And today we've got a special episode for you. This is the first episode of the 2017 edition of the Rut Radio mini-series that we launched last fall. I'm not sure if you guys, if you're new, you may not know what I'm talking about, but if you were listening in the fall of 2016, you're probably familiar with Rut Radio. But with me today, the guy who's helping make all of this happen is one of our producers and the host of Rut Radio, Spencer Newharth. Spencer, thanks for coming back to help us do this again this year.
Well, thanks for having me. Just as much as I hope people enjoy listening to them, I enjoy making them because this is all great information that I can use too. So I'm happy to be doing this, and I'm happy that we started them a little bit earlier this year.
Yeah. So that's something I think a lot of people will notice different. So last year we started Rut Radio as a mini series within Wired to Hunt to give people up-to-date information during the rut. And I'll let you explain in more detail, but at a super high level, that was our high-level thought and plan. This year, we're still going to call it the Rut Radio mini-series, but I thought, let's share what's going on throughout the entire deer season. So I guess before I go any further, Spencer, can you walk us through what the Rut Radio series is going to be about? What are we going to cover on these special episodes?
So each week for like the next 3 months or so, I will talk to a number of different contacts in the whitetail world and see what the deer activity looks like where they're at. And so, for example, this week, we got 4 states that kind of cover the U.S. and next week we'll try to have like 4 different states that do the same thing and just kind of hear what these guys are seeing in their region. And hopefully the information that you get from that can just be another piece of the puzzle that you use for your hunts. And, for this first episode, I'm in the same boat as that. What I've heard from these guys has been really relevant to me because as someone whose deer season doesn't open until this weekend, I have not been in the woods hardly at all. And so talking to some of these people gives me a really good idea of what I should be looking for in these early hunts as far as bachelor groups and field edges and beans turning colors and stuff like that. And hopefully, as we get deeper into this, that you can use that same bit of information in October and November and December.
Yeah, I love it because I think, so often we want to know what's coming our way or what we should expect if we haven't been in the woods in a little while or different things like that. So what I thought about last year's, episodes, when we talked to a whole bunch of different people from different parts of the country every year, and you were asking them, okay, what kind of deer activity are you seeing? How are you seeing these deer react to the current weather? what types of rut-related behavior, all those different things. You're getting this intel from somebody maybe in Iowa or South Dakota or Kansas or New Hampshire or whatever it might be. And then depending on where I was hunting or where, a friend was hunting, I could say, okay, so-and-so was hunting in Iowa. I'm heading, I'm going to be heading to Iowa next week. Sounds like they're seeing A, B, C. That's going to help me plan what I do when I go there. Or in particular, right, you get these weather systems that go from the west towards the east. So when I hear about what's going on in Missouri or Iowa or Illinois a couple days before I'm going to be hunting here in Michigan, I know what to expect coming my way. So my hope is with this year, not just rut-related things, but even early season-related things, late season-related things, we're going to get a really good pulse of what's happening in the whitetail world across the country, what kind of conditions we're seeing, what kind of deer behavior we're seeing. And also what I liked about last year was that you did a good job of talking to people about not only what they're seeing, but also what they're trying. So what types of tactics they're trying, what types of stand setups they're trying, and then how are those working? So you can see, okay, yeah, it sounds like rattling's really starting to work for people right now. Or, oh, it's interesting, 3 of the 5 guys said that a doe and estrus bleat worked for them, and it's the first week in November. Maybe, yeah, I should be trying that. I found that really helpful. I don't know if you found that helpful for yourself as you did that. Is that the case at all, Spencer?
Yeah, definitely. And like this time of year with the guys we talk to, you'll kind of notice it's a lot of like very vanilla setups, that it's field edges, it's evening hunts, it's looking for water, stuff like that. And I think you'll really start to notice a difference in those kind of hunts once we get to October. And I remember one episode last year, for example, where I kind of hit everyone with the same question at the beginning and say, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think the deer activity's been? And I remember it was like mid-October, and we got everything from a 2 to a 9.
Yeah.
And so, right now it might seem like things kind of are the same from North Carolina to North Dakota. But as we get a little deeper into the season, especially right before the rut kicks off, there's a lot to take in as far as local deer activity.
Yeah. Well, I'm hoping this is going to be helpful for people to get, real-time updates and perspectives from different people across the country. So I'm excited about it. I know you are, and I guess we should probably just stop beating around the bush and get right into stuff today, Spencer, because I know you've got a good slate of contacts for us to hear from. So what do we have in store for this episode?
So we opened it up talking to Cole Stevens from Hawk Hunting, and he was hunting in North Carolina where he actually tagged out on an awesome buck.
Nice.
And then we go to Mike Hunsucker from Heartland Bow Hunter in Missouri. Then we have AJ Gall in Wisconsin with Legendary Whitetails. And then we ended in North Dakota with Alex Comstack from Whitetail DNA.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like we got some interesting stuff in store, so I will leave it to you, Spencer, to take us from here.
All right. Talk to you next week, Mark. Before we get to our first update, though, let's pause for a word from our sponsors at Sitka Gear. And for this week's Sitka story, we're joined by Sitka photographer Sam Sohold, who tells us about a recent elk hunt that started with an unexpected snowstorm but ended with a bull on the ground.
So on Friday, September 15th, my buddy Andrew Whitney and I and his girlfriend Katie, probably against better judgment, hiked into about 4 miles in a snowstorm. And got there just before dark and set up camp, and had a very cold, sleepless night because there was trees falling all around us. And the next morning we woke up and it had cleared a little bit, but the storm had pretty much shut down any elk talking. So it was just a long, cold day. We started a fire and stayed warm, and heard a couple bugles that night, but just nothing coming into the calls, and nothing excited enough to approach. So we went back to camp and crashed for the night, and got up the next morning. It was like totally clear, crisp, and we hiked over to this ridge. And as we crested the ridge, I'm pretty sure a bull heard our footprints in the snow, because the snow had frozen. It was really crunchy. And as we crested the ridge, this bull fired off a bugle. So Andrew bugled back, and he cut him off again and bugled, and then another bull fired off. And so we started moving in, and all of a sudden we saw this 6-point running down the hill, and he was actually running towards the other bull that had fired off. And about 30 seconds later, we heard him start to fight, and we just sprinted towards the noise. And we got down the hill about 400 yards, and they literally let us walk to within 20 yards at one point, and they were just fighting back and forth in the trees. we had both come to full draw. We thought they were going to stop, and we thought we were both going to loose an arrow, and ended up fighting back down into the trees. And then when they finally fought back up, the winner of the fight pushed the other bull off, and then was just standing there watching the other bull walk away. And I grabbed the camera to make sure I was filming the bull, and Andrew came to full draw and sent an arrow, and it was done. So from the moment we heard the bugle to an elk being on the ground, it was like 7 minutes and 16 seconds, according to the time log on my camera.
On Sam's hunt, he was wearing Sitka's Jetstream jacket and mountain pants. If you'd like to create a Sitka story of your own, or to learn more about Sitka's technical hunting apparel, visit sitkagear.com. All right, so joining us on the phone first is Cole Stevens, the digital coordinator for Hawk Hunting. Now, Cole has been hunting in North Carolina for the last week, where he actually just punched a tag on an awesome buck. Now, Cole, during your time there, what would you say the buck activity was on a scale of 1 to 10?
While I was there, I would say that it was about a 6. The deer movement had slowed down just every day, it seemed like, from when the time we got there to the time that we left. I think that was due to the transitioning of their summer patterns to fall patterns. A lot of the deer, or a lot of the stands that we were hunting were summer pattern stands, and it seemed like every night they were coming out a little bit later. So it was starting to decrease our hunting activity while we were in the stand.
And so with all the hurricane talk that was affecting that area, did you guys feel that in that part of North Carolina, and do you think that affected the deer hunting at all?
I do. The gentleman that was hosting us, the hurricane actually didn't hit there, but he said that the days that it was supposed to hit there with the cold front that had hit and the rain that they had gotten, that the deer were just acting a lot different than normal. They weren't hitting the cameras that they were normally on. So I really do think that hurricane had some sort of effect on them post and during that time frame that they were there.
Well, for a Midwesterner, that is a scary and really foreign thought to have to worry about hurricanes affecting your deer hunting. But going forward, you talked about how you expect to see more of a transition from summer patterns to more of their fall pattern. So, Cole, with that transition, what do you think that's going to look like? Is there going to be more daylight activity or less daylight activity?
Yeah, they were definitely getting away from those fields during daylight. The stands that we were in were usually just those pinch points where they're on their way to those stands, and you could tell that they weren't just crossing through those like their average stroll. I think right now the acorns are sitting in the stand. You could hear them dropping nonstop, so that's really going to hurt the hunter, because they're not going to move during the day. They're going to hit those acorns. They're not going to need to find the food sources out in the open fields. They can be more concealed. And I think in the next couple of weeks here, the deer are going to be really hard to pattern.
Well, during your time there, you killed that awesome buck, and congrats on that. But why don't you tell us a little bit specifically about that setup that you had for that hunt?
That setup was a really exciting one, actually. Previous to me coming down there, Carson Corey had sent me a few pictures of that buck and said that he had been coming into a regular spot and that he'd really like to get me on him. Well, like we were talking about with that hurricane, the buck disappeared. He quit going to his normal spot, so we kind of had to adjust to that. And the first night I hunted it, it was dead. There wasn't a single deer walking through there. But Carson kept telling me that was his bedroom and that's where he was going to work his way back to. So the following night, I hunted the same stand, and it was almost like clockwork. He must have walked his way back into that bed, and I caught him right before dark, taking the exact steps that we thought he would. I don't know where he was the previous days. He had just disappeared like a ghost, and then all of a sudden I had him at 10 yards right underneath my stand doing his nightly walk.
How about with bachelor groups? Are you still seeing deer that are grouped up at this point?
Not like they were. This buck, he had been showing up almost regularly by himself, but there was another buck coming to the same area at similar times, but they were never really grouped up together. They were definitely on different terms at that point when we were hunting them.
All right, Cole. Well, going forward in North Carolina in this next week or so, what do you think the deer activity is going to look like on a scale of 1 to 10?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I think it would be almost down to a 5 because of the amount of acorns dropping and just the transitioning. The bucks were losing their velvet. They were kind of acting funky, so I think now they're going to start hitting that testosterone and really just breaking apart. And now I guess the place you'd want to be is finding where they're moving right before dark and right in the early mornings out of their beds. They're not going to be looking for food so much as starting to get on those does and starting to get a little more aggressive.
All right, Cole. It sounds like your timing played out well then to get a deer on the ground. So thanks for your time and good luck the rest of your season.
Yeah, thanks, Spencer. You too.
All right, and joining us on the line next is Mike Hunsucker, host of Heartland Bowhunter. Now, Mike, I know Missouri just had their opener and you've been hunting. Thus far, what would you say the deer activity has been on a scale of 1 to 10?
Man, I'd have to say it's been actually it depends on what you're talking about. You know, I've so far in the past few days I've hunted 2 different properties, and one property I'm seeing a lot of movement, another property I'm not seeing much. So it's early season, it's hit or miss. That's typically how it goes. But this is absolutely one of my favorite times of the year to hunt and target a specific buck, especially in Missouri. The last 2 weeks of September can be really, really effective.
And is there something that you can put your finger on as far as why you're seeing one property with such great movement and the other one without?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of variables. You know, the deer have been obviously the key on the beans throughout the summer. And as long as you still have beans that are still green, typically, you know, you're going to see good deer movement. So on one of our properties that I'm hunting, we just have really, really green beans. We got them in late. The deer are just absolutely annihilating them. They're still definitely the preferred food source. And on that particular property, there's not a lot of mature oaks, so we're not seeing much of an acorn crop, which, you know, keeps them in the field, as opposed to, you know, our other property that, you know, we still actually have green beans on as well, but the deer have all but vanished off of the bean field. It's unbelievable. It's kind of a surprise to me, actually. You know, typically, as long as the beans stay green, we're going to see deer in there. But, man, I cannot believe the difference the past couple of weeks has made. The acorns must just be dropping like crazy. I mean, we've seen them to a certain extent, but, I mean, the deer have literally just vanished in these fields where we were seeing 30, 40 deer a night. We're not seeing hardly any. So it's a pretty crazy difference.
Now, with that property that you are seeing good movement, the pattern that those deer are on, how long of a pattern has that been that you've observed, just like days or weeks that these deer?
Yeah, I mean, all summer, basically. I mean, they've been, you know, sticking to the same patterns, you know, for at least the past couple months, you know, since the beans really got established, and they haven't really got off the beans. So it just depends, you know, on property, on the food available, the cover available, and where the deer are at. I mean, every property is unique and different, but one thing that's pretty much remained constant, you know, is that if you have beans that are green, I mean, they're going to be eating them, and you know, they may prefer acorns, you know, when they can feed and be in the secluded timber where they're not being, you know, exposed and stuff, but until at least till dark. But it definitely makes a difference. The acorn crop definitely makes a difference on the amount of activity we've seen in the field.
And so what does a setup look like for you this time of year? Is it almost strictly all field edges that you're hunting?
Yeah, you know, it kind of depends. I like to kind of lightly this time of year. I mean, it's, you know, you got deer that have been undisturbed all summer long, and they haven't been messed with, and they're pretty regular for the most part. And the last thing you want to do is just, you know, dive in and blow the deer out and ruin your opportunity. And if you're hunting a big mature deer, you know, you just don't get that many opportunities. So my favorite thing is to kind of start from the outside, start from some vantage points, and kind of get an overview of what's going on before you actually make a move and dive in. And, you know, we're primarily focusing on evening hunts this year. Morning hunts are really tough depending on the situation. If you have a certain property that sets up good for them, it might be acceptable. But for the most part, we're keen on evening hunts and just playing it safe, waiting for the right wind and the right conditions. That makes a huge difference too. Obviously, the weather patterns and anytime you can get a cold front this time of year with a high pressure system, it seems like the deer are just on their feet moving like crazy and feeding.
And has moisture played any kind of role there for you early in the year like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So these two particular properties, one of them we've gotten pretty ample amounts of rain. The beans are doing well. The food plots are doing well. And our other property, is a little further north, and we've missed a lot of the rain that we've gotten down further south, and it just makes a huge difference. I think that has a lot to do with the acorns dropping a little bit early because it's so dry. They're dropping a little sooner than they would, and so obviously the beans aren't doing as well there. Food plots are struggling. We had to actually replant a couple of them this week that just didn't hardly even germinate because there wasn't any moisture in the ground. So, you get up to northern Missouri, southern Iowa border, that area. We've had a lot of drought this summer.
Well, going forward here, Mike, at the end of September, what do you think that deer activity level is going to be like on a scale of 1 to 10?
It typically decreases as you get later in the month of September. I've kind of experienced the first, 5 to 7 days of the Missouri season tend to be the best. And a lot of that, like I said, relates to beans turning, acorns dropping, and that type of stuff. But, as we get later in the month of September, I think the movement's going to be down a little lower, depending on your area. But, I think that once we get into those times where the weather is so much more of a factor, and has them on, the cold fronts that come through are going to really have them on their feet moving, when otherwise they may not be moving until after dark. I would say deer movements, this time of year is up there, 8 or 9, as far as, moving and daylight consistency. And, later in the year, you're probably going to get, 6, 5. It's not the best, late September, early October, into the middle of October gets to be tough and really relying on weather systems.
All right, Mike. Well, great insight there on Missouri, and good luck the rest of the fall.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a good one.
Before we get to our next update, let's pause to hear from our friends at Whitetail Properties. This week with Whitetail Properties, we are joined by Neil Hogger, a land specialist out of Wisconsin. And Neil is going to be telling us about what habitat improvements can be made to northern properties, like that of Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Well, in northern Wisconsin in particular, where I live, what you deal with is monoculture of forest for the most part, especially in the upper third of the state. And as such, the most important thing you do revolves around food. The deer are going to go where the food is, and with that monoculture, you can have a biological desert in the timber. So if you can create food plot, that's fantastic. But if you really want to make it special, you want to recreate what I call as a trifecta. Try to create a food plot near a structure such as a creek or perhaps a ridge point that the deer must navigate around. And now you've created a pinch point. And if you want to really spice it up, you can maybe put in a watering hole, or you can maybe do a blocking hinge cut. And then you've created maybe a trifecta or a quadfecta. But the goal here is to give the deer a reason to be on the spot and make sure your tree stand is in that spot.
If you'd like to learn more and to see the properties that Neil currently has listed for sale, visit whitetailproperties.com/Hogger. That's Hauger. And joining us on the line next is AJ Gall, the content coordinator for Legendary Whitetails. Now, AJ, in Wisconsin, what would you say the deer activity has been on a scale of 1 to 10?
Hey, Spencer, I would say it's probably sitting right around a 3 right now.
A 3, and so that's obviously pretty poor. Do you think it has been better in the past, or why do you think it's so low right now?
Yeah, I think we just got struck with, now it's going to be a full week of continuous heat to hit the opener, which was coming out of a relatively cool August and beginning of September. So we got a little unlucky heat wave here for opening weekend, and now it looks like it's going to be mid-80s again heading into the second weekend of hunting.
And so with that heat wave, do you think it's just uncomfortable for the deer to be moving right now, or do you think they're hitting other food sources and water sources?
Yeah, I would say it's probably just a little bit later in the evening. I did notice on Sunday night versus Saturday, Sunday night it dipped about 10 degrees. There's a little bit of a cool front that came on through, and seemed like there's pretty good deer activity during the evening. And there's some sparring bucks, does and fawns were out feeding. Most of what I saw was out in either alfalfa or bean fields yet. Beans are just starting to change around here.
So you mentioned the sparring bucks. Does that mean that the bachelor groups are all broken up there in Wisconsin right now?
They're definitely not completely yet. There's some traveling together based on trail cams and what we saw. I just had that one instance. Actually, it wasn't me. I just got a video from my cousin that was on stand Sunday night, and he had the old text on the screen saying turn the volume up, and sure enough there's two bucks going at it pretty good. So it's right at that stage where their testosterone starts to rise and elevate, and they'll be splitting up here shortly.
And you mentioned the beans a little bit earlier also too. Are the deer hitting the beans right now like they have been, or are they changing colors for you there in Wisconsin?
Yeah, they're definitely changing colors. It's been highly variable, especially on the western side of the state where we had a ton of rain and farmers got in there a little bit later than normal. So I know on our one farm out in Vernon County, there's going to be green beans around there for quite some time because they didn't get planted till July. And then down around here in the southeastern part of the state, pretty much everything got planted on time. So it's just a matter of what variety bean they used. And, but I would say majority of the fields around here are starting to turn gold. So they'll be turning off here shortly.
Yeah, that sounds like what most people are experiencing in the Midwest right now. I know Wisconsin just had their opener. Have you been hunting any mornings yet, or are you strictly evenings this time of year?
Pretty much strictly evenings. I did sit Saturday morning, just because it's the typical thing to do on opening day. But just saw a little 5-pointer, and that was about it. So yeah, mainly sticking to evenings, get ahead of them, and beat them out to the field edges and just inside the woodlots.
And going forward in Wisconsin for this next week or so, do you think the deer activity is going to improve? And what would you think that's going to be on a scale of 1 to 10?
Yeah, this weekend, I think it's going to be pretty close to similar results. Another rise in temperature, so I don't think it's going to be too great. Pretty hot afternoons for anybody that's looking to do hanging hunts. So I would say it's going to be right about the same. So 3 or 4, I would guess. It just makes it tough to try to get out there and want to shoot a doe or even a buck and have the chance of it going wrong and not hitting it perfect than dealing with these temperatures. So.
All right, AJ. Well, I hope some cooler weather comes through for you in Wisconsin. Thanks for your time and good luck.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, it'll come.
And joining us on the line last is Alex Comstock, the founder of Whitetail DNA. Now, Alex, in North Dakota, you guys have already been hunting for quite a while. And in that area, what would you say the deer activity has been on a scale of 1 to 10?
I'd say overall it's probably been at about a 4. It's been kind of hit and miss, some good nights, some bad nights.
And so has it gotten a little bit worse as you guys have gotten further into September, or is that 4 been pretty consistent?
Yeah, I'd say it's been pretty consistent. I mean, we've had a couple days where we had a small cool front push through and we had some better deer movement. But lately, in the last week or so, it's been pretty warm, so not much has been moving.
So with you guys have been hunting already now, for almost 3 weeks. What kind of encounters have you had this season in North Dakota?
Pretty much all of seen a lot of, does, 1.5, 2.5-year-old bucks. Mostly all evening hunts. I've sat one morning and didn't see anything, and mornings usually don't produce much at this time of the year, but we've had a few mature buck counters between me and a couple of my buddies, and they've all been in that last, 10, 20 minutes of light, but it's only been a few.
And so hunting a lot of public ground like you do, are you feeling any hunting pressure this time of year?
I really don't see a ton of pressure where I'm at, and that's like probably my favorite thing of being where I am in North Dakota is there's a lot of people that bow hunt, and it's mainly all on the private land. So it can be really tough to get permission, but on the public, you just really don't see many people.
And so what are some things on that public ground that you're keying in on right now? Water or food or bedding? What is it?
Kind of all of the above, depending which property I'm hunting. I've got one property where I'm targeting a specific buck, and with him, it's trying to get as close to his bed as possible. Because where he's bedding on public is it's pretty thick. And then there's crops all around on private. And then some other pieces of public, you've got some bean fields, and then there's a place where I've got a pond trying to get on water, kind of just to get on anything where they're kind of keen in on the evenings.
And what kind of role does weather play for you hunting this early in the season?
This time of year, if you can get a good cold front to come through, that's really key. Our best few days of hunting was when we had temperature drops, 25, 30 degrees within a couple of days, and we were able to get eyes on some good bucks. And one of my buddies he passed a pretty good deer. So yeah, I mean, weather's everything. And then if it's not a cold front, it's, rain. I like hunting right before a heavy rain. Tonight we're getting thunderstorms all night and with hail and everything. And then, so I'm going to be out tomorrow trying to get out there after that.
Now, are you seeing a lot of bucks that are still grouped up, or are they pretty much separated at this point?
I think right now where I'm at, they're just starting to separate. I've got a few bachelor groups that, 4 bucks are running together, and now only 2 of them are showing up every time. And I don't know if the other 2 have transitioned, if they're moving to their fall range already. So I'd say the next week or so, they'll be splitting up.
What about going forward in North Dakota? What do you think that deer activity level is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10 in this next week or so?
I'm hoping it's going to creep its way up to about a 6 or a 7. We're supposed to get temperatures down into the 50s this weekend and next week. So I'm hoping with those temperature drops and, being a lot cooler than average, look at those deer moving a little earlier before we get here into October.
All right, Alex. Well, very jealous that you've already had so much time to hunt in North Dakota, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
And that's going to do it for this first episode of the 2017 Rut Radio mini-series. We'll be back with a new episode like this every week from here on out through the rest of the year. So we're going to get you those real-time updates and conditions as we go throughout the hunting season. I'm pretty pumped about that, and I hope you guys find it helpful. And then, of course, we will be back as well with our regular episodes of the Wired Hunt podcast every week as well. So you're going to get 2 episodes a week, 1 regular podcast with me and Dan, 1 of the Rut Radio episodes with Spencer, and the rest of these updates. So thanks for tuning in. And before we go, we want to give a big thank you to the rest of our partners at Sitka Gear, Yeti Coolers, Matthews Archery, Maven Optics, Whitetail Institute of North America, Trophy Ridge, and Huntera Maps. And of course, thank you guys all for listening. If you're out there hunting, I wish you good luck. And until next time, stay wired to hunt.
I'm sure a lot of you guys remember the old ceremonial hunting tradition of eating the heart out of the first animal you kill. Meat from those organs are among the most nutrient-rich foods on the planet. You can get those same benefits your ancestors craved via convenient daily capsules from Heart and Soil. Find out more at heartandsoil.co. And remember, use code MeatEater for 10% off your purchase. You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins.